Hello, everyone. This is Kerwin, and welcome to another episode of Travel Talk. And today we're going to be talking about what happens when your flight gets canceled. What do you do? Let's go. So this is a common thing that happens out there. And what happens when my flight gets canceled? Am I entitled to anything? What happens? So let's first look at why flights get canceled. Flights can be canceled for any amount of reasons. Primarily weather. That means that there's weather at your destination, there's weather en route to where you're going, and there's weather at your origin, which is where you started. Normally, when an airline go, well, we cancel your flight because of weather, the first thing you do is call the person you're going to and go, well, they said the weather is bad in your city. Can you see it? And the person like, oh no, it's totally fine here. I don't know why they canceled the flight. Because everyone is a meteorologist when it comes to weather, right? And everyone has more knowledge than the airlines. So they always know why something happens. And it's kind of the airline's fault because sometimes they don't tell you. Just like, well, we had to cancel the flight. And people are like, well, why? Whereas if they could say, we had to cancel your flight because of a mechanical issue. And that's one of the things. And then they'll go, well, what's the issue? Because everyone is a mechanic all of a sudden, everyone can fix it, right? So it's just how humans are. The airlines can't win. No matter what they say, there's always going to be someone who goes, well, why? Why? So cancellations happen. That's kind of what you need to know when they happen. You have no control. So the airline goes, your flight is canceled. All you can do is say, well, how can you get me to my destination? Normally, like when the flight gets canceled, it costs the airline money to have you walk around the airport and do nothing. And all you're gonna do is call your friends and badmouth because you're upset, right? Saw a guy, he was upset because his flight was canceled. His flight coming in was canceled. And then eventually he got on a flight and he made his original flight, but because he got there late, they had canceled his ticket. So he had no seat on this flight. He was livid because he had to go to work the next day. And a lot of flights were either overbooked or canceled because there was bad weather. And he was not very happy, which I can understand where he's coming from, but the agents are just trying to help, right? It's not their fault. Someone decided it's a good idea to cancel this flight for whatever reason. And now they had to take care of you because you're standing right in front of them. The good thing is that if you know what you're doing, you can get out of the situation easily. I think I was trying to get to New York. I think from here to Houston. And I realized that they were going to cancel the flight. And so what I did, instead of going up to the agent, I got on the computer and I realized that it had already shown that it was canceled in my record. And so I was able to rebook right away before other people could go on and get all the availability. So normally when your flight gets canceled, the airline runs a program in the back end. And what it does, it rebooks everyone as best as it can. And then it sends you a message, hey, we canceled your flight, but here's what we rebooked for you. Do you want it? And then you have to go in and say, yeah, I want it. Or no, I don't want it. Sometimes it's 2 or 3 days down the road. And the problem with it being 2 or 3 days down the road is that you need to get somewhere for whatever reason. And that's why you took the flight. I mean, you don't have all this extra time for vacation to hang around an airport, and you need to get somewhere. So you book the flight, the airline cancels, and now you're in a panic. So the best thing to do is to make sure you put a notification in your record that says, notify me if something happens, call me if something happens, email me if something happens. This way, immediately you will know what's going on. Lots of people don't do that because sometimes they book it with somebody else or a travel agency or something and they didn't put the information in for them. The information that's in the record is the information for the travel agent, which doesn't help you. So one of the things is that if you book it through a travel agency, which is fine, you can do that if you'd like, just make sure they put your contact information in there. Sometimes they don't have it, and that's why they don't put it in there. But once you get the record, you can go into the manage reservation section of the airline you're flying, put your confirmation number and your last name in, and you can get all the information up and you can fix it. So you can go in and say, this is my contact information. You can add your frequent flyer information if it's not in there. Matter of fact, something you can get seat assignments, because if you book, let's say you book and I'm going to have tangent a little bit here. Let's say you book a code share flight. So you bought an American Airlines, booked an American Airlines, but it's been operated by British Airways. So when you go to get a seat, it goes, oops, sorry, I can't see the seat map on the British Airways flight. But if you go to British Airways, you can see the seat map and you can get a seat. You may have to pay for it depending on your status, but at least you can see the seat map and choose whatever you want. When you book that ticket with American Airlines, they send you 2 confirmation numbers, but you probably didn't notice. There's one that says American Airlines and one that says British Airways. The one you need is the British Airways one. You're going to take that and you're going to put that into the British Airways website. It'll pull up your reservation and voila, you can manage it, i.e. you can assign seats, you can get special meals, you can get special requests, and I have videos on how to get a special meal and how to get a special request as well. But I diverged a little bit. Back to cancellations. So once your flight gets canceled, you are entitled to a full refund. No questions asked because it's already been canceled. That doesn't really help you, right? Because you need to get where you need to go, but you need to know that you can get a full refund. Also, in the airline's contract of carriage, which is a little document that if you ask any airline for, they will tell you where it is. It's on the website. You can see it on the website. So once your flight gets canceled, they have to rebook you to your destination within a certain amount of time. And just check the contract of carriage, and that will tell you. Typically, the airlines are going to try to book on their own airline because they want to save money. They don't want to go book you in somebody else. But if they have nothing else, they have to book you in somebody else if that person has space. Normally, in a situation, usually when cancellations occur, it's because there's weather. And if there's weather, then everybody is canceled. So you might as well stay with the airline that you have, right? That's probably the easier way for you to do it. The other way, the other thing with the cancellations is be nice. Remember, it's not the fault of the agent who's in front of you. They didn't cause a cancellation. The cancellation was caused by the airline, and that's what happened, right? They didn't do it. And so be nice to the agent, because that agent is going to be your ticket out of there, literally, right? Now, sometimes what you may do is, if there's a cancellation at that particular airport, you may be able to go to another airport and get out from that airport. So let's say you're in New York, your flight in JFK is canceled. You may be able to get a flight out of LaGuardia, or maybe to get a flight out of Newark, or Islip, or White Plains, or Stewart. So, and maybe it's just a bus ride or a taxi ride or a train ride or a combination of all of the above to where you need to go. So think about that whenever a cancellation occurs. Travel insurance, get travel insurance. Oftentimes the credit card you use to book the ticket has travel insurance. So be aware of what's covered and what's not covered, because not every cancellation is possibly covered. It depends on what you bought in your travel insurance. Usually most have they have cancellation insurance and they have something called delay insurance. What that means is that usually they'll put you up, i.e. they'll pay for a hotel or something like that. Now the thing is that most of the airlines, whenever cancellation is weather, they're not obligated to put you up, and sometimes they won't. And so you may have to sleep at the airport if you don't have travel insurance or anything like that. Oftentimes, though, when these cancellations occur, you can call the airline after the fact and say, here's what happened, here's what I did, and then they'll reimburse you. When Southwest had a major meltdown with their systems, people were stuck all over the country. And they had to do, some people rented cars. I know people who drove from Denver to Houston. And eventually Southwest reimbursed them, or they gave them points or something later. But always ask for compensation, and always say, hey, the contract of carriage, if they're giving you if and z, but go find a contract of carriage, look at what your rights are when the flight is canceled. One thing about cancellation is, so let's say you are going from Dallas to Houston, and then Houston to Miami on American Airlines, for example. Your Dallas to Houston flight was canceled. Your Houston to Miami flight should still be intact, but it may be canceled because you didn't make the Dallas to Houston flight. So if the airline is doing any kind of rebooking, let's say because your flight from Dallas to Houston got canceled in American, United also flies the route. So they rebooked you on United because there's nothing else to connect with your reservation for the Houston to Miami. You may lose that portion of your reservation. So what you need to do is make sure that if the agent is rebooking you, or if you are rebooking yourself, if you go, oh, American's canceled, I'm just going to go to Houston and catch the Houston to Miami flight. You can't just willy-nilly do that. You have to let the airline know, because otherwise your segment for Houston to Miami is going to be canceled. So you definitely need to talk to them to do that. I know it's annoying because the United flight is probably leaving right away and you want to take it. But when you get to Houston, you may not have a reservation because that portion was canceled, because the beginning portion was canceled. The airlines have something about if you don't show up for your first segment of your flight, then the whole thing gets canceled. Now, the value of the ticket is still there, but you don't have a seat because they've taken your seat off of that flight, and somebody is going to get it in a situation like that. So just be aware of how things work, because if you know how things work, then you won't be yelling at the agent, because you understand how it works, and that's kind of the key. And then don't be a know-it-all either, because if you be a know-it-all, the agent's going to get mad at you. Always act like you don't know, but ask a question. So you'd say something like, so can you book me on another airline, and then I can catch up with my other flight? And they'll go, let me check if I could do that, or something like that. But always make the agent look smart and don't look dumb, because think about it, when somebody makes you look stupid, you're like, you don't like that, right? So the agent is not going to like that. That's kind of the important things about cancellation that you should remember. And then once everything is over, you can always make a claim. Unfortunately, during some cancellations, you get nothing. That's what usually happens, right? But typically what the airlines will do is they will run a program and they will reassign everyone who's on that flight as best as they can. Unfortunately, normally everything else is booked. So sometimes you hear they'll tell you with a straight face, I don't have anything to book you for a week. And there's nothing they can do. Sometimes these flights are once a week. And if they're once a week, then what they're going to try to do is to book you into the airline. But if the other airline is also once a week, there's nothing they can do. So just bear that in mind, that that's also the situation. Yes, you can get upset, but it's not going to change the fact that they don't have a flight to put you on. Or it's not going to change the fact that there are no flights available for 7 days. But what you can do is, keep checking, because people change their mind. So let's say you and I are traveling, two separate people, I don't know you, and the airline goes ahead and they book me on this flight, and then they couldn't find a space for you, so that the next availability for you is a week later, but they found a space for me, and they tell me, and I go, you know what, I can't go at that time. It may be later, maybe 2 days later. I had something else planned. I go, you know what, I can't go. Just give me a refund. I'm not going to travel anymore. What happens is now all of a sudden the seat is open up because I'm not traveling anymore. Well, you're not constantly checking. So because you're not constantly checking, you didn't see that seat open up. And then you could have gotten that seat because I didn't want it. This happens all the time. I wish there was a way where you could, constantly check or something. And as soon as the seat's open, then you can get it. But once they run the programming thing, I don't think it goes back and it checks again, because it just does it once and it goes all the way through. If they can't give you a seat, then there's nothing they can do if there is nothing to give you. They may not have anything on a nonstop, but they may have a connection. Let's say the nonstop canceled, they may be able to give you a connection. This is why you do travel insurance, because let's say that you're going on a cruise and your nonstop flight gets canceled, but the connection works, but you're going to get there a day later or something like that. At least you have travel insurance, you can cover the cruise. Or what you can do with the cruise, some places you can catch the cruise at the next port. So maybe you can talk to the airline and say, oh, okay, well, I know you're supposed to go to Puerto Vallarta. My cruise is going from Puerto Vallarta to Mazatlan. Why don't you just fly me to Mazatlan instead of Puerto Vallarta? The thing is that when you give the airline options, really give them options. So research that you can say, hey, I know there's a flight at 5 o'clock. It is American Airlines or Delta Airlines or United Airlines or whatever airline. And here's the flight number. Here's the time and everything. When you give them that, that helps them, because when they're looking at a whole list of stuff, they can go, oh, okay, I wasn't thinking about Mazatlan. And then they can do that. Their job is to help you, but you can also help them. I know once I forget where I was, and the flight was canceled and they were redoing or delayed and they were doing rebookings. And the agent had worked on a perfect thing. And then the husband came and said, we're not doing that. And so all the stuff that she did, and it took her like 40 minutes, and all the stuff that she did, poof, nothing. And so all that inventory goes back into the system. And that's what I'm saying, you can keep checking. Use the app to your advantage. If your flight is canceled, and the airline, usually you have to call whoever booked your ticket, which is usually the travel agency who booked it. If you book it at a travel agency, otherwise you can call the airline. It is good if you have elite status, because usually elite status, they do them first when they're doing the rebookings, or they have a special number that you can call that normally the wait time is not as long as the regular number. Some trick that some people use is they'll call the language lines, because when you call the language lines, they do speak English. If you speak English, you can call the Spanish line or the French line or something like that. But usually what the airlines will do is that if those lines are not being used, whenever they get an English call, they'll automatically transfer it to the language desk anyway. They're epitomizing, or it's not epitomizing, optimizing what they're doing. So I hope this helps. Cancellations are annoying. Been there, done that a few times, but I've gotten out of them because I know how the system works. And I know that there's another airline that flies my route that I can take. And this has happened a few times. There was a hurricane. I forget which hurricane it was. It's coming into Miami. It's a year ago, almost a year ago. And my flight on American got canceled. But I knew that United flies that route. So, and I know that American would give me back the money because the flight was canceled. So I went and I bought the United ticket. But I didn't. What American had done, they had rebooked me on a later flight. And that's the thing. Even though they're rebooking a later flight, you have to accept the rebooking. If you don't accept the rebooking, you still are eligible for getting your refund. Now, again, check with the airlines, because sometimes the rules are different, but that's typically what happened. And so I was able to get out on United, because the American flight didn't work anyway. And so I got out on United just because I knew that United flies the route, American was having issues, and I know how the system works. Knowledge is airline power in this case. All right, I hope that helps, and I hope you don't have a cancellation, because they're really quite annoying. This is Kerwin. Have a good trip.